The most dangerous characters within all of Bleach took Kenpachi Zaraki very seriously. Yuoba flagged him as one of the 5 great war powers. Aizen had decided to avoid Kenpachi entirely until he had made himself immortal. Even Unohana Retsu, the deadliest criminal within the history of the Soul Society, he was only able to draw out his true power to the surface by dying to him in a duel. During the 1000-year Blood War arc, while battling against Gerard Valkyrie, Kenpachi found himself with his arm shattered, blood spraying across the white towers of Varavalt, and he was pinned under the boot of Gerard Valkyrie. The interesting thing is that no enemy put him in this position, as all of this was because of his uncontrollable Bankai. In this video, I want to discuss Kenpachi's uncontrollable berserker Bankai and why it cannot be controlled. For the majority of the series, Kenpachi was the only captain within the history of the Gotei 13 who didn't know his own sword's name. He was unable to perform Shikai or Bankai, and most had assumed that his weather-beaten Zanbakudo was in a permanently released state because his Reiatsu ran too hot to switch off. So watching Kenpachi reach Bankai in chapter 669 was a huge event. This is a moment that a lot of the fanbase had been waiting for over a decade to see. Kubo gave us a truly demonic transformation as the Bankai activation alone erupts in a pillar of energy that is strong enough to flatten the buildings nearby. Once the dust settles, we see Kenpachi's skin has turned blood red, and he has all of these black markings that spread across his face and down his body. He has horns that have grown from his forehead, and he becomes a Oni-like red ogre from Japanese folklore, a creature made of pure appetite and violence with no restraint built into it anywhere. His giant cleaver shrinks into something shorter, rougher, and more jagged, almost as if his Zanbakudo has become more angrier. Gerard takes one look and dismisses it as a broken sword that couldn't possibly be a Bankai, but he regrets saying this fast as Kenpachi bites down on Gerard's knuckle and tears the giant's entire arm off with his teeth. He then leaps up and shears away the other forearm along with half of Gerard's shield. He then uppercuts the giant Gerard, who's the size of a skyscraper, clean off of the edge of the platform, and when Gerard sprouts angelic wings and comes flying back on his Volstandig, Kenpachi splits him top to bottom from a serious distance. Blood rains down over the Quincy city below, and he does all of this without any real technique. Kenpachi's Bankai has no name or a special ability of any kind as far as we know. His Bankai reveal actually split the fanbase, and honestly you can understand why, as it is revealed during the rushed second half of the 1000-year Blood War arc. It is shown to us on top of his Shikai, which was barely given any room to breathe anyway. Some people do tend to blur the two separate things altogether. You can think that the story pacing was a mess, but still admit that Kenpachi's Bankai itself, the imagery and the brutality of it, is still one of the coolest transformations that Kubo has ever drawn. While Kenpachi may not have control over his Bankai, do you know who has total control over their power? These are the individuals who are subscribed to the channel. Only 20% of the people who watch these videos are subscribed, so if you enjoy this Bleach content and you want to see more, hit the bell notification and subscribe button for even more videos just like this. Now, Bankai is not something you're supposed to be handed. The way Yoruichi explains it, and the way that Ichigo and Renji both learned the hard way, you have to drag your Zanbakudo spirit into the physical world and force it into submission. You're supposed to dominate it, synchronize with it, and prove that you're worthy of wielding its true form. This process is stated to take 10 years or more, and that's before the extra experience that you need to master the Bankai itself. The reward for all of it is a power increase of somewhere between 5 and 10 times your base strength, a decade of grinding for a payoff that can kill you if you rush it. Remember, Kenpachi's done none of this, so there's a detail in the Gerard fight that most people miss, even though it gives the whole game away. Normally, the wielder is the one who calls Bankai. They shout the word and the spirit answers, and the second release manifests. If you look at Kenpachi's Bankai activation again, something is clearly off, because the person saying Bankai isn't Kenpachi, it's Yachiru. His Zanbakudo spirit reaches out, touches his arm, and floods him with energy, and she names the power on his behalf. So Kenpachi didn't summon this ultimate form, his Zanbakudo did it for him. It's similar to how you'd guide a child's hand around a pen that they cannot hold yet. This is borrowed strength and a body that has never once been conditioned to channel that much energy, as we are about to understand why it takes years to master a Bankai. After Kenpachi cuts Gerard in half, he reforms, because this is his his entire gimmick. The miracle regrows him bigger and stronger every single time, as he immediately fires up his Volständig again. Kenpachi moves in order to keep fighting, and he winds up for what is now his 4th big attack of the exchange. Then in chapter 670, his right arm shatters even though nothing hit it. The limb detonates from the inside out purely from the result of his own swing. Kenpachi didn't do this to him, neither did the miracle. Kenpachi did this to himself by pushing his own Bankai one swing further than his body could survive. Nozarashi even apologizes to him as it happens, admitting she let far too much power pour through him at once, more than his frame was ever built to hold. And it's for this reason that it blows apart. Every other captain can maintain their Bankai for as long as they really need to, because they spent those years teaching their bodies to carry the load. Byakuya holds 8,000 blades in the air. Hitsugaya is able to walk around wrapped in an ice dragon, but Kenpachi is unable to push his own peak output across 4 straight attacks without physically wrecking his own limbs. Gerard, who was being thoroughly dismantled up until this point, flips the entire fight and smashes Kenpachi into the ground, and he manages it for one reason only: Kenpachi broke his own arm for him. While Kenpachi's Bankai is active, Kenpachi stops being himself. He turns into a berserker in the fullest sense of the word, unable to tell friend from foe, and he fights with total disregard for whether he lives or dies. Bleach shows you this instead of telling you. The second he's done cutting Gerard in half, he spins around and goes to attack Hitsugaya and Byakuya without a flicker of recognition or a word of warning. Both captains work out in the same heartbeat that the smartest move available is to get as far away from him as possible, because there's no reasoning with whatever is currently running his body. Kenpachi never fought with technique. His one plan in any fight was to find the strongest thing in the room and cut it, running on pure instinct and bloodlust with his intellect switched off. So when Bankai multiplies him 5 to 10 times over, it has no discipline or willpower or precision to multiply, because those were never a part of Kenpachi's moveset. It multiplies the instinct and the bloodlust and nothing else, until there's no person left underneath all of it. Byakuya's Bankai expresses his refinement. Ichigo's expresses his resolve. Kenpachi's Bankai expresses an animal instinct that he has never tried to tame. The Kenpachi we know draws out every battle for as long as possible, because for him the joy lives in the struggle itself. This version of him hasn't got the patience for it. He stops toying with Gerard and finishes him in the fewest strokes that he can manage. Kenpachi Zanbakudo is Nozarashi. The name translates to weather-beaten one, which is a quietly devastating detail when you realize it's describing a blade that's left chipped, worn, and neglected for decades. Its release command is simply drink. Kenpachi came by the Zanbakudo while he was wandering Rukongai long before he was a captain. He found the corpse of a dead Shinigami, and he took the blank Asauchi from the corpse and poured his own soul into it until it became his. The two of them never got on though. Zangetsu states outright that Kenpachi's disharmony with his own Zanbakudo caused the pair to damage each other's power over the years. This is why his Zanbakudo ended up chipped and running on empty. Zangetsu could hear Nozarashi screaming her own name across all the time, reaching for a wielder who was unable to listen to it. Kubo revealed some insights on his fan club Klub Outside in a Q&A posted on the 19th of July 2021. In question 151, a fan asked about Yachiru, Kenpachi's tiny pink-haired lieutenant, the fearless infant that he'd found barely clinging to life, who reached out and touched his bloodied sword the moment that they first met. Kubo confirms this, that Yachiru is a fragment of Nozarashi. It split away from the main Zanbakudo spirit. When Kenpachi gave that nameless child a name, she took on the essence of a Shinigami and became a person in her own right, even manifesting a Zanbakudo of her own called Sambo Kenju. The true form of Nozarashi, meanwhile, appears as a grown woman, it seems. Kubo suggested picturing the link between Old Man Zangetsu and Tensa Zangetsu, as the young Yachiru is a fragment of the Bankai portion of Nozarashi. So his Bankai had taken a physical form and walked by his side for years. In a follow-up question posted on the 5th of December 2022, in question 419, a fan asked whether if Yachiru touching his sword at their first meeting had been a foreshadowing all along, and Kubo simply answered yes. So in the very early portions of Bleach from the Soul Society arc, it was teased that Yachiru is in fact Kenpachi's Zanbakudo spirit. During the Gerard fight, Nozarashi tells Kenpachi that if only he'd used her properly, there'd be nothing in the world he couldn't cut. You can assume that properly is not the berserker version that we saw against Gerard. Kenpachi additionally spent spent his entire life throttling his own strength, and for the most part he had no idea that he was even doing it. We learned this during his training with Unohana, which plays out across chapters 525 to 529. Because Kenpachi is so overwhelmingly strong, he could easily flatten most opponents before a fight can properly even start. His subconscious begins to quietly cap his own Reiatsu just to make his battles last a bit longer. This is why he only barely beat Noitara, and why he actually lost to Ichigo back in the Soul Society arc. His power would instinctively settle to a hair above whoever he was facing, and when Ichigo spiked mid-fight, Kenpachi's subconscious throttle couldn't keep pace. Layered on top of this involuntary cap are the deliberate handicaps that he has. Kenpachi has a eye patch that he specifically asked the Soul Society Research and Development Institute to create, as it seals away the bulk of his spiritual energy as well as interfering with his depth perception. The bells that are threaded through his hair can only be heard by an enemy whose Reiatsu is dense enough to kill him, so he's wired himself up with these 3 separate limiters because winning too easily bores him. After Kenpachi killed Unohana, those subconscious limitations were removed, and only then for the first time in his life was he able to finally hear the voice of Nozarashi. This is where he truly inherits the title of Kenpachi, the one warrior per generation, the single strongest Shinigami of the era, and the only route to inheriting it is to kill whoever currently holds the title. Going by Hanataro, the title means one who loves battle above all else, who has cut down more Shinigami than anyone, and who will not fall no matter how many times he struck. The Kenpachi title is built around raw killing and endurance rather than refinement, and this tells you that Kenpachi class strength is designed from the ground up to be wild. Zaraki is considered as the 11th Kenpachi, having beaten the 10th in combat, but it later turns out the first Kenpachi was never actually beaten in a duel, until Zaraki did it during the 1000-year Blood War arc. Now Kenpachi's Bankai has no name because Kubo deliberately didn't give it one. Fans refer to it as Yachiru Nozarashi, but out of convenience, and one of the games slaps a label on the activation, but within the actual canon, the ultimate form of the strongest Shinigami is nameless. Within Bleach, naming is power, and it sits at the very foundation of the power system. Ichibei, the first Shinigami, wields a Zanpakuto whose ability is literally the power of names, letting him weaken or unmake things by stripping the name away from them. Kubo treats naming as the act that grants a thing its identity and pulls it into being, which is the exact reason Yachiru became a real person the instant that Kenpachi named her. Of course, his Bankai has no name. Kenpachi started life as a nameless boy carrying a nameless sword in a lawless district that gave him nothing, aside from its name which he carried forward, which allowed him to become the Kenpachi from Zaraki. So you can see the significance of names within the character of Kenpachi. The fact that he doesn't know the name of his Bankai means that his power is unfinished. The No Breaths from Hell one-shot chapter established that captains with a Ray grade of 3 or higher are cast down into hell when they die. Some have theorized that Kenpachi may actually originate from hell. His Reiatsu sometimes forms the shape of a skull. The skeletal Kushanada that guard hell share his aesthetic. His Bankai turns him into an outright demon, and there are moments where the people right next to him can't sense his presence, as though he isn't fully of this world. Now Kubo did pick the song Super Predators by Massive Attack as Kenpachi's theme song, and he once described his Zanpakuto with the line "consume everything, demon of the bloodthirsty sword." So there are a ton of parallels to hell. Everything that we've talked about so far is Kenpachi barely being able to use his power. Now imagine if you could access his Bankai when it's fully under his command. The clues are scattered throughout the story. In Shikai alone, with the eye patch still on and nowhere near his true strength, Nozarashi wiped out a meteor larger than the Vandenreich Citadel, an object that Remy claimed had the raw power to erase the entire Serete. This was in chapter 578, and he gets rid of this meteor with one swing, which was enough to erase it from existence entirely. During that same fight, his cuts were passing straight through space itself. Then within the Can't Fear on World light novels, Nozarashi is named as one of only a handful of Zanpakuto capable of leveling a replica of the Soul King's palace in a matter of minutes. Within the light novels, he also one-shots Ikomikido Yaomaway, a primordial hollow that was so dangerous that it was sealed inside of a Zanpakuto because its destruction was feared to unbalance the Bleach universe itself. There is a description of Kenpachi that is really hard to get out of your head. He is referred to as a mass of pure violence with the power to destroy the very concept of death itself. On top of all of this, he goes toe-to-toe with Hikone, a being groomed to become the next Soul King, and he does so by using nothing but his Shikai. His eye patch is already off and his Bankai is never used in the fight. The version of Kenpachi's Bankai that shredded his own arm and swings at his own friends is an unrefined, untrained one. What's insane is that Kubo's given us every indication that the raw material underneath this untrained Bankai, if it is ever controlled and properly refined, then it could allow Kenpachi to stand up against almost anything that Kubo has ever created. So if it takes 10 years to attain Bankai and equally as much time to refine and master it, by the time that we reach the No Breaths from Hell one-shot chapter, which is set 12 years following the defeat of Yhwach, then it's more than likely that Kenpachi has had plenty of time to refine and improve upon his Bankai. With the rumors that Bleach is returning with an all-new Hell arc this year, there is every indication that Kubo could show us a version of Kenpachi who can hold his own in his Bankai form without it falling apart, where his mind is completely intact, and where we even learn the name of this unnamed Bankai. We are just about to see this Bankai be adapted into Core 4 of the 1000-Year Blood War arc anime, and with the promise of there being over 50% anime original content, I'm pretty confident that this Bankai reveal of Kenpachi's will have some new material attached to it in anime form. Then if the manga returns in the Hell arc, you can guarantee that Kenpachi's done training and refinement of his powers in those 12 years since the 1000-Year Blood War arc. So there is a lot to still look forward to with Kenpachi's character and his unnamed Bankai. We've reached the point of the video where I want to hand over the discussion to all of you. Do you think Kenpachi will ever truly master this power? Or do you think that his Bankai works better as something that can never be controlled? And where would you rank it amongst the strongest Bankai within Bleach? Let me know your thoughts by continuing the discussion in the comments, and lastly, thanks for making it to the end of this one, and I look forward to seeing you in my next Bleach video.
A massive thank you goes out to all of my amazing Patreon supporters for helping to make this video possible. If you also want to support the channel and see your name in the end of my videos, then check out my Patreon, which has loads of perks like early video access and so much more. Thank you for sticking around till the end of the video, and whatever you contribute will mean a lot to me.